Greetings, everyone. Welcome once again to the Oz and Crew Reviews podcast. As always, with me is my co host, Mad Matt.
Hello.
And we don't have any extra crew tonight. We're just a two-man team again. Kind of starting out a series of what I would guess classifies as Halloween themed movies.
Yeah.
We're talking about Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, which is it starts as a mockumentary about a slasher killer, similar to the vein of like Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers. They reference Freddy Krueger in the movie, but like, let's be real, Freddy Krueger is not really like the other slashers.
He's he'll cut them up like them, but he is a little step beyond. He's kind of also a psychological slasher, if
Yeah.
you will.
So, you want to use your usual synopsis shtick?
So my usual quick synopsis of the film, the major beats here. So essentially, we start off the film. We're watching a waitress, I believe, at a coffee shop, taking out the garbage late at night after close. As she's doing so, we get a POV shot, and it turns out that there's somebody in blurred silhouette behind her watching her. She barely sees something for a brief moment, but as she goes to try and look, suddenly the brick she uses to keep the door open is knocked out, and she has to quickly run back around the building and let herself back in through a door that actually has a lock. Apparently, the back door just is a permanent lock with nothing to unlatch it with. To this, we fade out and we fade back in on a trio who are basically filming their own documentary, essentially going on about all these wildly popular, now legendary slashers that are out there and occasionally still pop up and seemingly just have this lingering curse to them that makes them always come back to the general area where they've came from, or where they at least got popular as the killers that they are. To this, we'd also add really quickly, outside of the reference of the movie, we see a lot of cameos from popular movie actors and actresses throughout. At least three of them that can be easily named. But the main focus is that they're trying to set up the fact that they're about to talk to this future up and coming slasher who's about to have his big night, and that he's willing to talk to them and has come to them with the plan to show them what it means to become a legendary slasher murderer, and what it all is about. To this, I finally meet with Leslie. Um, and Leslie starts to walk them through everything he's been learning. He brings them over to meet his next door neighbors. The of the couple, the man is actually an ex-retired slasher. Before the big legendary ones came out, he was a much harder working guy who had to do what he could with what he had available in the late 60s, early 70s, essentially. And we don't know for sure, but they seem to hint very heavily that his wife was actually a final girl that survived him, and for whatever weird reason decided to stay with him.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of back and forth. You're not quite sure. There seems to be something off, but you're never quite sure what's up. But they do definitely drop some heavy hints that obviously they know what they're talking about, and they're just maybe not entirely sure what to say in front of the crew. To which Leslie starts showing off his plans, like who his main target is, who his red herring is, and then he even takes them through the setup for his red herring to kind of introduce us something that's officially wrong and up before trying to make actual moves on his main target. To which his, I believe they call it Ahab, shows up,
Yeah.
which is a Dr. Loomis type played by none other than my brain just
Robert
suddenly forgot
Englund.
no names. Robert England, yeah, is Ahab. Doctor is played by Robert England, doing essentially a complete 180 from his usual roles. But he's a professional actor and he does a darn good job. Plays a very convincing and very gun heavy doctor who comes after him with a pistol, manages to get him in his shoulder, but Apparently, underneath his costume, he was wearing bulletproof armor, so he's not really hurt, just maybe a slight twinge afterwards, and then manages to get away. But the next day, the crew decide they want to try to talk to the girl that he's planning on targeting, to which they are first confronted by the doctor, who says that he's onto them and that he can figure that they know something about the murderer, but will let them go for now. Freaks out the girl, which is not what they were aiming for, and then immediately go outside to confront Leslie, who told them and warns them yet again, you can't ruin this for me. He gets very threatening, in fact, which is definitely the point where a lot of the hammy acting starts to kind of drop and tends to aim a little more serious, as this being a spoof documentary is still comical at times, but it's still becoming much more darker. They then agree to come to him to the location that he's been planning out, where he's planning to have all this happen, which, by the way, it's also been dropped at this point that his name's not Leslie. He's actually picking up a story from someone else that happened before, and apparently the real Leslie died.
His name is Leslie, but he has a different last name than the one he's
Oh
basing
yeah,
his legend on.
he's a different person, a different last name, even if he is still Leslie. So he starts stepping them through this place where he's playing this big setup. How he's going to kill the first pair in the upstairs bedrooms, the next pair he's going to at least kill one of them in the basement and send the other one up screaming. Mess with the lights with a on-off switch for the breaker box, and all this other setup. Scare them by appearing in front of the window, etc., etc. Already have all the spark plugs and things removed from the car so they'll never start up. But as he's getting through the first duo of kills, he looks at the hostess of the trio and goes, no, 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 no. I see what's going on here. She's arguing that we can't stay here and just let this happen. Look, you need to get her out of here. You both need to get out of here. You can't ruin my plans for me, please. We agreed to that, and we need to stop this right here, right now, before you interfere. Because that's what you're going to do if you stay here. To which they do go outside. They do finally say their goodbyes to Leslie, and they do start to put the cameras away. But then in the movie turns into just a plain old slasher movie, as the quality of the camera work suddenly turns up a notch, and they start going about trying to help the kids, but only seem to be playing into Leslie's hands the further they go into it, as he seems to be very quickly adapting and changing what his actual plans were. It is after a little while after this, and after they're down to about the last two kids and only two of the three crewmates still there, that the hostess suddenly realizes that this has all been Leslie's plan from the beginning. She's actually the target, not one of the teenage/college age girls. So the other crew member gets knocked out. The other two get slashed and hung from a rope. And Leslie gives chase to the hostess. I'm trying to remember her name. I keep
Taylor.
forgetting names there. Taylor. Yeah, he starts chasing Taylor like he originally planned for the girl, and goes out to the apple orchard, has a quick swing, breaks the axe, still uses the axe's handle, even though because it's still a long weapon that's still in good condition. Gets out to where the apple crusher is to make apple cider, essentially. And there's a back and forth. Taylor ends up on top, gets Leslie's head into the crusher, and as he takes off the mask, he finally gets out the last words, I knew you were the one, before she twists it one more time and you hear a crunch. She then spreads gasoline, lights it on fire, tosses the axe handle in there, and on her way out, finally bumps back into the doctor and her crewmate, and they manage to get out of there. I believe it's Doug. Yeah. Is the crewmate that survived.
Yep.
Doug and Todd.
Yeah, Todd was the one that died because he tried to lure Leslie away earlier, and then he slipped in the wet mud.
Yeah, out in a barren field.
Yeah, big fat guy losing his balance, probably not gonna be able to get back up and do anything in time.
No. And then in the end credits, as Psycho Killer by Talking Heads plays, you see Leslie eventually get up and we'll start to look at a a hospital nurse who's been getting ready, I assume, to be doing an autopsy or at least doing
Yeah.
some sort of study on him, and that's where the movie ends.
I mean, technically that happened during the credits.
I
That
said
bit,
that's the credits.
right. Yeah, because that was mainly an Easter egg more than part of the actual overall plot.
I mean, you gotta have your cliffhanger for a slasher.
Yeah. Yep. And you're probably like I only really started to appreciate horror movies a couple years ago, which was mainly because of Dead by Daylight.
Ah,
It's kind of funny. I got into that specifically because they added Wesker, and
uh,
and then it's like, well, I'm playing a game that has all these other characters in it. I kind of would like to know more about the lore behind the characters, so I kind of binge watched all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, all the Halloweens, and I watched all the Friday the 13th movies, even though he's not currently in Dead by Daylight. But he's,
you never know.
he's one of well, he's also one of the big ones where even if he's not in there, it's kind of relevant because they obviously took inspiration from him for some of this other stuff in the game.
Oh yeah, especially for a trapper.
Yeah. So it was interesting to me watching this after marathoning all of that stuff. I figure for you it might be a little it might have a little more of a special spot for you because of you being into horror longer than I have been.
I guess technically my horror experience started when I was around 5 when I saw the movie The Gate. By the way, rated PG. Even though there's a kid getting a demonically possessed kid getting his eye stabbed out, another kid getting grabbed by a giant demon, all this other crazy stuff going on in that movie. PG movie. I think it's 1980s.
What the hell?
Still a really good movie, by the way. Still highly recommend it. I just recommend they be a little older than 5.
Yeah. I
um,
I was kind of surprised in this that they actually just straight up named Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and Michael Myers. Like, I'm surprised they weren't worried about any sort of like copyright issue for saying their names directly in the movie.
I think it's not so much the names they have to worry about because some of those names, or at least parts of those names, do exist in real life. I think they have to worry more if they actually tried to represent them imagely wise on the screen. Then there'd be all kinds of red tape and bullshittery that they would have to leap through to get around that.
So,
But just mentioning by them by name usually won't hold you back too much.
so what you're telling me is that's probably why they decided to have Kane Hodder be the guy standing in Elm Street instead of Crystal Lake,
Instead of having Robert England or any of the others, yeah.
which I loved Robert Englund as Dr. Halloran. The my one beef with this movie is I wish we saw more of him.
True. He does a really good job of what tiny little bit he's given, but he is not on there very long. He's maybe got what 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, because he doesn't have a whole lot of screen time. He had maybe
Yes,
four.
two rescue moments,
Him,
a like 2 minute monologue, and then reappears that last couple seconds or so at the end of the movie.
yeah, he had maybe five total lines of dialogue in the movie.
Roughly, yeah.
But he was still enjoyable for every moment we had him,
Hmm.
and you pointed out that the guy that played Leslie Vernon, from what we can see, has actually had more work in the production side of movies than actually acting.
Not even movies like production on TVs,
Right.
on TV, in particular reality TV, but that just kind of makes it go, oh, that's why he's super comfortable and willing to do these weird interview things for a pseudo mockumentary thing because he's well aware about trying to do these kind of interview things for reality television shows because he does that because they do that all the time. So he's got all the negatives.
Right.
He has to work for those negatives all the time.
And I think the fact that he's involved in production makes it easier for him to do the I'm being interviewed about what goes into doing something thing for the
Yeah.
character.
Hmm.
I think that was interesting way that worked because sometimes you got to try to pick somebody that just really fits for the role.
Yeah,
And
and he's an expert at this point. He's worked how many different shows, multiple different seasons, and some of the ones that are still ongoing, as far as I'm aware, like Deadliest Catch and what was the other one? Deadliest Catch and Storage Wars, which yeah, again, as far as I'm aware, they're still ongoing. Yeah, as of like a last year or two. Yeah, those shows have been going on for over 10 years.
um,
But yeah,
but yeah, there are a lot of funny moments in this where it just it they made jokes in regards to stuff that only really you have to be a fan of the genre to catch the references they're making because the whole idea of a survivor girl, which
Survivor Girl, the Ahab.
yeah, because who usually is the person that survives out of the group in most horror movies?
Mm-hmm.
Usually a
The,
girl.
the the stoner kids, um, the jocks, the cheerleaders who always get killed.
If a guy survives, he's usually not the only one that survived.
Yeah.
Because I can only like what was the name of the one guy that was kind of like the enemy for Jason for like 3 movies.
Oh,
It started as a kid and then they did like a time skip to use as a different actor as an adult.
Tommy.
Tommy, like he's one of the few cases I can think of where the main hero of a horror movie is actually a guy instead of a girl.
Yeah, Tommy Jarvis. And yeah, he kind of at least for part 5 he became the main character. Not Jason.
Yeah, I think five and six he was more or less the main character.
Fun
Five,
fact about 6 version of him, by the way. That actor for him in part 6, he's also the lead actor for the first, or at least a main actor for the first 2 Return of the Living Dead movies. So that boy got his chops real fast, real early on in the 80s for horror movies.
ah. Oh, and you pointed out the other big cameo in this was
Oh,
Zelda Rubinstein playing the librarian.
Mrs. Collinwood, apparently. Yeah, I don't recall her having a name, but maybe it was like on the desk or something.
I think Leslie said her name, but he only said it like one time, and then it never really got said again. So it's like it was easy to forget that he actually said the name
Mm.
out loud.
Right.
But
That being said, she also, much like Robert England, Zelda played a huge little uh, role by being a big info drop for one of the characters in the movie, helping to set up the whole Leslie narrative
yeah,
of what's going on.
she
And
literally
and you couldn't pick a more perfect lady, especially creepy sounding little old lady, to do that kind of dialogue drop for you. This is why. Matter of fact, she used to be a hostess for narrator for a old series in like the late '90s for like ghost hunting. She would do like narration for these people visiting haunted locations and directing where things are going from scene to scene.
right. Yeah, so she did a very good job of narrating Leslie's backstory through like
Hmm.
exposition. Um, like I think she actually explained. She was the first one that explained it all, where we actually heard it. Because I think they might have hinted at it earlier,
Oh,
but
they heard it hinted at it before, but we never knew all the details until she said it. Yeah.
um, and it is sadly this was her final role before she passed away.
Well, at least she went out on. It may not have been a big role, but at least it was out on a good role.
Yeah, 'cause she nailed her
Nailed
one
it. Yeah.
scene in the movie. She nailed it.
Hmm. Well, technically, she's in a little bit of like between the bookcase scenes before that, but yeah.
um, and the guy that played Eugene, the the kind of mentor character
Um,
for Leslie. This was Scott Wilson, who I mentioned to you that he, like, a very poor, little known role that I recognize him from was he played the leader of the cannibal family in the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd movie. But what most people will recognize him for, if they actually recognize him when they see him, is that he played, I can't remember the character's name, but he played like the doctor that
Herschel
Herschel, yes,
Herschel Green, yes.
Herschel Green from The Walking Dead.
Checking to see if he's got anything else I might know on his list here. CSI, my family watches that. Just probably a couple episodes or something. Yeah. Let's
Apparently,
see.
apparently he reprised his role as Herschel Green in Robot Chicken at one point.
Yep.
Um,
Um, Dead Man Walking. That sounds familiar. There's the Judge Dredd. Young Guns too. Ooh, there we go. Twilight Zone. Oh, TV series. Which one? 86. Oh, he was also for the revival of Twilight Zone in the 80s.
hmm.
That's about it for stuff I actually know him from.
So, I think like the main actor we need to mention aside from this, because we can talk about some of the scenes
Mm.
after this, but the other main actor that I really recognize was Angela. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. Who played Taylor? Um,
Just
how did you feel about her?
Athalis.
Yeah. How did you feel about her job
Honestly,
at the role?
she also did a really good job. You definitely believe her to be a genuine like hostess who's kind of worried that she's obviously new to it and is worried that she's maybe doing it a little too close to what others have done. And then you see her gradually get more and more invested, and it feels very natural up to the point where she wants to try and interfere. And then at the very end, that moment when she just clicks in her brain, she's like, "Oh no, I'm the one he's been targeting."
Yeah.
That was a really good twist because I was starting to wonder about that because of the whole hand holding scene like a little while before that.
Because one of the things that Leslie stated that a survivor girl has to have is that she has to be a virgin. And as we quickly realized, once things began to get crazy, was that no, Kelly, his original target, was not a virgin because
Oh no,
they walked in on her riding the baloney pony, and they pointed out that that's not the actions of someone who hasn't done this before.
no, she was riding them cowboy.
Yeah,
Yeehaw, even. And yeah, that's like, oh, that's no, that's not normal for a first time, especially.
yeah. So and then she did before she said it out loud. One of the quote unquote kids. I mean, they're supposed to be teenagers, but they were all played by 20 somethings. One
Yeah,
of them
college kids.
points out, she's the virgin. He just says it out loud, and you're like, "Yep, that's what it is."
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at her IMDb, and she doesn't have like a huge list of movies
No, she
she's been
doesn't.
in.
She has mostly TV series stuff.
Um,
But she's gonna be in that prequel.
yeah, and even with the TV series stuff she's been in, she's only
One episode, 15
yeah,
episodes.
this movie came out in 2006. She's only had 5 roles since then. Looks like she actually had a lot of roles as a child actress. It looks like
It does seem like, yeah, because yeah, she started in the 80s at some point.
maybe maybe she found something
Equalizer.
else to do in the business. Don't know for sure. Cuz I like she's another one
Into the
her
90s when she was in Home Alone.
her and the girl that played Kelly, I both of them. I'm looking at them like this person looks familiar, but when I look at their IMDb, I'm like, nope, I don't recognize any of that stuff. So I have no idea where I've seen this person before, if I actually have, or if it's just that they look similar enough to another person I have seen in something that it just tricked my brain into thinking I've seen them before.
All right.
But yeah, she did an interesting job of okay, I can't let him do this after what all the stuff, and then turning out to have to go through the ordeal that she had described to her that was supposed to be for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's too much we can
Yeah.
say about like most of the other actors because
They did their roles, or they were just there to be cannon fodder,
like
as you expect for a horror movie.
like her crew, Doug, who was oddly enough the one that survived, probably had the least personality out of the crew because he didn't really say much of anything.
He was just busy being the main camera guy, while Todd, who was also technically a camera guy, was a little more interactive with everything
Yeah,
going on. Yeah.
he'd make snide comments or be commenting on how certain girls are hot. Oh, that one's totally my type. Oh, that's not creepy at all, Todd. The obese cameraman talking about how he thinks the teenager's hot. That's not creepy at all.
I'm just saying he can pick them. Todd.
Yeah, because most of the time he'd say something and they'd be like, Todd, stop. But the thing is, he instead of being like a jackass most of the movie, he did end up being one of the ones that kind of had like a more brave moment because he
Yeah.
tried to lure Leslie away from everybody else.
You
It's
give them a
just
moment to find a way out, but sadly didn't last very long.
yeah, because he's a like guy that's probably over 300 pounds. He doesn't got much good
Oh, you
cardio
see.
going on.
Yeah.
And then he slipped in the mud, and that just kind of doomed him. But I will say I don't understand why when he realizes he's getting tired, he decides to turn around and look at Leslie mid run, and then he slips. That was kind of a stupid thing.
Well, the thing they seem to be hinting at is that he was also realizing his feet were getting stuck. So I think he was maybe also trying to look for a different direction to go.
Uh,
And that's when it really got him, and he then tripped. Yeah.
yeah, because Eugene even told them before this all started. If you are actually trying to ever survive, you run and you don't look back. He looked back.
Yep.
He
He
wasn't
looked
supposed to
back.
do that. I think that's about all we can really say because it's one of those things where you don't want to. I know we usually go over a lot of the story bits in these podcasts, but like you don't want to go see every single scene for scene because it really would just ruin it for anyone that
Just
might
ruin it for
actually
anyone.
watch it.
Yeah. There's still, even though we've also technically spoken of what the ending is, we haven't given all the details, so it's still worth watching. It's still a good run. And how long is this? Only like an hour and a half?
It was
Hour and a
yeah,
half to 2 hours.
hour and 32 minutes.
Yeah, well, only an hour and a half long. Very good for a little hour and a half movie. And as I also just kind of hinted at a little bit ago, they're apparently planning a prequel, and a lot of the cast is coming back.
Yeah, the at least according to IMDb, they even got Kane Hodder coming back again.
Yeah. They actually give him a named role this time, so maybe he'll get at least a line or two in that next one.
It is gonna be
I'll,
weird though, because if it's a prequel and the guy that plays Leslie is like a lot older, like I imagine he has to cast somebody else as the character.
Either they're going to cast someone else, or they're going to do some decent makeup as long as he hasn't aged too badly, and just try and keep him looking like he used to in the previous movie.
Makeup and CGI.
Welcome to the new modern age. We'll just deep fake your old face back onto your face.
Yeah. But anyhow, I thought it was an interesting movie. I figured you'd at least get some kind of a
It's
kick out of
it's
it.
it's fairly amusing, yes.
So I think that's more or less all we have to say. And next time, we're going to begin watching the Ghostbusters movies.
And that includes the Answer the Call movie, apparently. So buckle in,
Yeah.
everybody.
We started as a podcast that covered primarily bad movies. So if we're going to touch the series, we can't just skip one of the bad movie because it's not part of the official canon.
We're going to unpack the whole canon.
All right.
We'll see where that last one leaves us, because I haven't seen it yet. I have it. I just haven't had time.
Until next time, everybody. Have a good one.
Good evening, everyone.